When you watch the mainstream media news, do you feel a little twitch? Is there a tingle in your left hand? Is your jaw locked? We have the solution. Welcome to Reasonable Arguments, News and Nonsense, the podcast where thoughtful debate meets unfiltered fun. Coming to you from Sarasota, Florida, where your host, Jamie Miller, a political expert with a high-level take on today's events, and Jennifer Bash, someone who can't stand politics, but loves helping you make sense of the chaos. Together, we mix informed, conservative commentary, playful banter, and just the right amount of nonsense to keep it entertaining. From domestic and international news to conspiracies both proven and debunked, we tackle it all with humor and honesty. We believe keep your arguments reasonable and your nonsense fun. This is Reasonable Arguments, News and Nonsense. And now your hosts, husband and wife duo, Jamie and Jennifer.
Power, scandal, and a touch of the unexpected. Today's lineup has it all. Trump and DeSantis tee off. What's hidden behind the lines of Biden's farewell? And could TikTok end up shaping a Supreme Court showdown? We'll explore the shocking mystery of an oil spill that's raising eyebrows, wildfires with rumors of decade-long connection, and two unbelievable stories. One about a PhD student's bold pivot, and another that proves even supermarket points can uncover dirty secrets. Stick around because the twist in this episode will keep you guessing until the end.
All right, baby. What a great episode we have ready today. There's a lot of news moving very quickly.
There really is, yeah.
And first of all, Trump and DeSantis went golfing this week, and no real reports on what they spoke about, but you can guess it has a lot to do with DeSantis' appointment to the U.S. Senate to fill Marco Rubio's spot. DeSantis has telegraphed for a long time, is like, I'm going to wait until about Donald Trump's inauguration to say who he's going to appoint. And of course, the inauguration's Monday, and DeSantis has kept his cards very close to his vest. Last week, however, Politico.com had a little insight, and it was kind of a Ron DeSantis press release. It said Ashley Moody for U.S. Senate, Senator Blaise Ingoglia for CFO, and then DeSantis's chief of staff being appointed to Ashley Moody's vacancy at Attorney General. And then there's a kind of an odd ending to that story. And it was like, this team will shape the legacy of Ron DeSantis's future. And so you can tell that it kind of came from the governor's, press department, right? And so now fast forward to golfing on Monday, none of those folks were really Trump people. None of them. Ashley Moody was a DeSantis supporter. Blaise was a DeSantis supporter. Of course, Youthmire's a DeSantis supporter. And Youthmire and Blaise in particular were kind of anti-Trumpers until the bitter end when Trump secured the nomination. So,
do you remain an anti-Trumper even once he's elected president?
No. Once he wins the nomination, everybody gets on board, right? And so, but these are not folks who, Donald Trump would say, I want it. And so now, if you go back to the weekend, Congressman Corey Mills said, I'm going to run for U.S. Senate regardless of who Ron DeSantis appoints. And presumably so with Donald Trump's endorsement, because he's very close to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has already endorsed Senator Joe Gruters for CFO. And so it seems like the state of Florida is lining up to have a Republican clash of the titans of a Trump slate in these primaries versus a DeSantis slate in the primaries going into 2026. And I don't know I've written in my blog so that the one way Democrats can get some daylight in Florida is if Republicans have huge primaries and Democrats do not. And I know that both DeSantis and Trump's team read that log. And so they know that the worst case scenario is to have these crazy primaries. So therefore, these two guys golfed on this week. And so we'll see what comes of it. My guess is you'll see one or two different people appointed in there because these two men have to negotiate some level of, hey, we're working together and we're not going to have these huge primaries in 2026. Not only because, they end up costing tens of millions of dollars, but they, so it takes focus off of it. And then now as Trump is in his first 2 years, it's Trump versus DeSantis. And Trump doesn't want that either because evidently he's trying to lay the groundwork for J.D. Vance to be the nominee in 2028. So why would he give DeSantis this platform? So there's a lot of backroom, behind the curtain maneuvering going on with these appointments in Florida.
Well, you have to assume that DeSantis is still going to run for president again one day.
One day, right. So is that 2028? Is that 2032, 2036? I mean, we've spoken on one of our former podcasts.
Well, maybe it's a VP thing. Maybe
right.
he's moving him up to be VP with Vance.
Yeah, that would ultimately be probably the best scenario for everybody involved, right? And so of course, we're going to talk about the confirmation hearings, so we might as well just jump into that. So Pete Hegseth, when he was stumbling, it was mentioned that Ron DeSantis
can I ask a question about the confirmation hearings? Because I can tell you up until yesterday, I've never watched one in my entire life. I had a job that I worked full time and couldn't watch these things. But so what is the purpose of these confirmation hearings? Do they go through them and then, like, I watched what happened yesterday and it was brutal, which leads me back to, I always want to be a nobody, because to sit up there and have that just railing of questions is just, I would find it very hard to contain myself. But so these confirmation hearings, can they be then voted to not
confirm? Yes.
Okay.
So someone can stumble. If somebody comes out and they stumble, then, it gives daylight for not only the opposing party, but some people who may be on the fence, whether it's political, personal, for whatever reason, that they don't like, the person that their president is nominating.
Yeah.
Right. And so certainly Pete Hegseth did a great job yesterday in the confirmation hearings. Pam Bondi's confirmation hearings were starting as we were starting to get on the air. I expect her to do a great job. But more importantly, it was really kind of interesting how strategically the Senate and the President Trump worked together to say, hey, we're going to put Pete Hegseth out there first. It's kind of like a coach saying, you know what, I'm going to kick off to start the game, and I'm going to put my defense on the field because I trust my defense. This was a big, if you look at the trust President Trump had in Pete Hegseth, to have him go first and by himself. There were no other confirmation hearings yesterday. Today, there's like 8 or 9 confirmation hearings.
Is that because they knew that it would have been that rough yesterday?
I think they knew that it was going to be rough, and they counted on Pete Hegseth to be able to handle himself, and he did. And so, quite frankly, Hegseth now has laid the foundation for all these other potentially controversial. There's a couple more controversial. Pam Bondi's not one of them. Marco Rubio's not one of them. But there's a couple other controversial nominations.
But how do you know that? Like, how do you know going into it that they're not going to have something that they bring up on these people?
You don't know.
Okay.
You're going with trust, right? So at some point, that's what I'm saying is Donald Trump put a lot of trust in Pete Hegseth, because if Democrats were able to get blood in the water with Hegseth, they would have had blood in the water for all these nominees. And so they would have.
So you think they're going into the tire today after yesterday?
It would have empowered Democrats to rip these things. And what ended up happening in yesterday's, particularly Pete Hegseth, the Democrat women came across as like a bunch of little ladies from, the United Methodist Church at a potluck dinner cackling over whose banana pudding was the best. I mean, it was embarrassing for them. They were just unleashed and unbridled and really unprofessional in their questioning of Pete Hegseth. And they came across as angry. They came across as loud. They came across as just really bad optics for the 4 women Democrats on the Foreign Relations Committee yesterday.
But if they truly have these concerns that they brought him with, so whether or not he cheated on his wife and he got another woman pregnant and, he was, I don't know if there was a minor situation, but I know there was a lot of sexual deviation stuff going on. If they truly have those concerns for him as a person, should they not address them?
I think 100% they should address them, right? Like, that's why you have these hearings. You should address them. But they started going from, hey, we're trying to get information for the American public, to just attacking. And, and there is a fine line, and there is supposed to be a level of sophistication in the U.S. Senate. In the House, people throw barbs all the time and haymakers all the time. In the Senate, there's supposed to be a level of, just adulthood. And that just wasn't shown from the Democratic side yesterday. He came across as just really undisciplined. And I think it led into, Pete Hegseth walking out of that confirmation hearing almost assuredly getting confirmed before the entire U.S. Senate.
Okay. So when does that happen? Does that happen after all of the interviews?
So they'll have that interview, and then the committee has to vote, and it'll probably vote 100% on party lines, and then it goes before the full Senate.
Is that all before Monday?
No, that'll happen quickly after Monday.
Okay.
So then we have Biden's farewell speech.
Who's writing it?
Who knows? I mean, the question is it going to be typed, or is it going to be in crayon so he can read it?
It's a crayon.
Crayons?
Crayon?
Crayons. Okay, crayons.
Crayon,
okay.
Yeah.
So, but Crayola crayons. How about that?
Crayola crayons, yeah.
Crayons.
Yeah. So do you think that there's
You kind of took my joke right away from me by making fun of me, baby.
I couldn't help that. People are going to be like, what? We got to put closed caption on. I wonder what it'll actually bring up.
Everybody from the South knows what crayons are.
I can't even wait to see the captions on this to see how it types that word out.
So, they haven't released yet. They normally release some of the speech beforehand. And, he's supposed to take credit for, Build Back Better and bringing more superconductors to the United States, chips and things like that. But the one thing he's not going to talk about is the record number of U.S. bankruptcies in 2024. Corporate bankruptcies were up 8% from 2023. And it's the most number of bankruptcies we've had in the United States since Barack Obama in 2010.
What is considered a corporate bankruptcy? Is it like a company of a certain size?
No, I think it's a corporate, somebody who's filed.
Just anybody, just a business who.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think there were something like 627 corporate bankruptcies.
Wow.
So in 2024. So, Joe Biden is leaving, and he's making it worse. He's writing all these executive orders that are, we talked about in our last podcast, and we won't go back into those, but he's really trying to politically push Donald Trump into a corner, and I just don't think that it's going to work. I was interested. Are you interested in watching Joe Biden's speech tonight?
Yeah, I think I would be. I hate the feeling I get when I watch him speak. I just get, it's kind of like when you're watching something on TV and you get embarrassed and you kind of just want to close your eyes and not watch it. And I think, that's how I feel about watching him, because I had mentioned that before in another episode where I feel bad because he is a aging man and going through these things, and he is forced to be in the public eye. Really kind of glad that now he can probably just go play in a ball pit somewhere
in his crayons.
Yeah, his crayons, and have fun, for his remaining days and not be under this scrutiny. And I get it. He's the president and all of that, and what they did to the American people was wrong by keeping him on for as long as they did. But yes,
or even nominating him in the first place for learning is, he was compromised in 2024. People are like, oh, this is like Ronald Reagan. It's nothing like Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, when he ran for re-election in 1984, was still a cognizant person, went and campaigned, went out in front of people, had speeches, did debates, did all of these things. And Joe Biden didn't do very much of any of those things. I mean, the Democrats had a lot of debates, but there were tons of people. They put tons of people on the stage, so it limited the amount of time that the guy had to speak,
Yeah.
knowing that he would be the likely nominee. And I think all of that was orchestrated,
Yeah.
all of it. And so I'm interested in seeing the speech just to see
For sure.
if he can stay awake through it. I'm not sure I'll stay awake through it, but it'll be
Well,
interesting
I'm
to see
sure
if the
they're going to
president
keep
will
it
stay awake.
short and sweet. And I kind of just want to see the hidden messages in there to see, you know, what is.
Well, he's certainly going
been
to try
said.
to lay groundwork for his legacy. And, you know, his legacy is a failed economy, a ballooning federal government, unprecedented debt, and, you know, so, and record bankruptcies. So, you know, I don't know that he has a whole lot to say that's going to be positive that is true.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay.
So also, we've talked about this a little bit. TikTok had their moment before the U.S. Supreme Court last week. And as early as today, the U.S. Supreme Court has said they're going to release some rulings today. And so there's some speculation. Now, they don't say what they're going to rule on or whatever. There's two schools of thought. One is that they're going to release something on TikTok today. And the other is that they're going to wait and that they're still deliberating behind closed doors on what to do with TikTok. TikTok is expected to go dark on January 19th without U.S. Supreme Court intervention. So we're just a couple days away, or Saturday, I guess Sunday, a couple of days away from January 19th when TikTok will go dark without U.S. Supreme Court intervention. Now, interesting, if it goes dark on Sunday, Donald Trump gets inaugurated Monday, Donald Trump could sign a 90-day delay if he feels like TikTok is going through the process of trying to sell. And TikTok has shown no willingness to negotiate with any U.S. buyers to sell TikTok to keep the platform moving. So
have you heard of Red Note?
So yes, I don't know that much about it. I saw it in a news story.
Yeah. So apparently Red Note is China's new TikTok, I'm assuming. I don't know if it's something that's been around or for how long it's been around, but apparently everybody is now moving to Red Note. They are getting set up and ready to go there. There's already been over 10 million downloads to it. It doesn't say in here when it is the number one top free and social app right now. But it's interesting because now everybody is.
Well, the interesting thing also is that, you know, because China owns it, the precedent is set. So this Red Note won't stay around any longer than TikTok if it's owned by. So we've had a doctrine in the United States for some time that media companies, newspapers, and then television companies, radio, could not be owned by more than 20% of a foreign entity or a foreigner. So a foreign company or a foreigner can own more than 20% of a media company. And so now the question is, TikTok is trying to establish itself as an entertainment company, not a media company. But what we do know is that if you're under the age of 40, even under the age of 30 for sure, 40, 50% of people under the 30 age group get their news from TikTok. So it has become a media company.
Absolutely.
And so now we have a foreign country dominated, and there's instances of Chinese propaganda being supported through TikTok's algorithm. So more Americans see Chinese propaganda than they do criticisms of Chinese propaganda. So we know that communist China is dominating what people are seeing in their newsfeed. And so I don't expect Red Note, TikTok. I mean, there's going to be some level of, we're not going to have China influencing everyone in the news.
But how can you say, I guess I just don't get it, because like when I'm on TikTok, my For You page, I see a little bit of everything, of course I get a lot of cat videos because I love the animal videos, but I do see news stories from both sides. So I guess I don't, yes, it's a Chinese owned company, but.
Well, here's the thing. Think about, the amount of data they're collecting, the amount of data, we are not, until this takes off, right? Until our podcast takes off. We're not, social media influencers. We're not elected officials. We're not. Imagine now that you're an elected official on TikTok and China can go in and dial into you personally, an elected official, and determine what you see and what you don't. And that's scary manipulation from a communist country. And to mention, another Biden failure, he just said that he just took Cuba off the terrorist countries list as he's leaving office. And so, it's the whole back to TikTok, didn't mean to go to that tangent, but TikTok is going to be able to influence people who are influencing. So, back in the day, Drudge Report, for instance, you could go to Drudge Report, which was a news aggregator, and you would go on there and if you went on there at 6 a.m., you could pretty much predict what CNN, Fox News, and all those TV folks were going to talk about throughout the day, because they went on Drudge Report. Whichever stories were getting the most hits, Drudge put at the top. And that's how, it's kind of like Burger King buying land next to a McDonald's, right? The McDonald's did all the market research. Oh, if McDonald's is going there, Burger King will go next door the next year, right? So, Drudge Report was that for news companies. Well, now if you put that into that news aggregator's owned by Communist China, so it pushes all the communist stories to the top, then they feed off of each other, right? So then the other, American-owned news companies, they start reporting on the communist Chinese stories because that's what's getting clicks, right? And so it just perpetuates itself downhill until you have, the Chinese government in control of the media for the most part.
So now you're saying that they don't want any American company to buy it with Elon having dual citizenship. Is he?
Well, Twitter's the same thing. My opinion on dual citizenship is much different than the law's opinion on dual citizenship. So if you're a dual citizen, you're a U.S. citizen. So you're counted as a U.S. citizen. And so Elon could buy TikTok. I know there were rumors that he was going to. There was rumors that another company was offering $20 billion to buy TikTok. Right now, the TikTok and ByteDance, which is the communist, that's the problem, is ByteDance is the communist company that controls the algorithm for TikTok. And, all we've said is, hey, all the U.S. government has said is TikTok in the United States has to separate itself from ByteDance. You can no longer share data with ByteDance. You can't share money with ByteDance. They've given them avenues to keep TikTok a legitimate company in the eyes of our government. And TikTok has refused to do so. So then the question, if you're a user of TikTok, is why? Why is because Communist China has permeated our society, and especially a young, the under 40 crowd of our society, and they are influencing them. And Chinese government does not want to give up that influence. That's why that's why they're trying not to sell. And they're going to wait till the very bitter end until the U.S. Supreme Court rules. They're keeping their fingers crossed that the U.S. Supreme Court rules in their favor. Court watchers would suggest that both progressives on the U.S. Supreme Court and conservatives, for different reasons, are against TikTok in this particular case. So it's speculated that TikTok will lose the case before the U.S. Supreme Court and will either have to go dark or be sold.
Okay.
So that brings us to finally kind of an update on, the California wildfires, and, one of the things that, I think you wanted to talk about later, as we go into this, is that it's the conspiracy theories are running rampant with the California wildfires. Not only how they started, the failures of not having water, available, fire hydrants going dry.
The insurance is dropping fire insurance 2 months before.
The insurance issues, But I wanted to bring in a little bit of, we've faced this in Florida with hurricanes. And so one of the things that happened with Hurricane Charlie back in the mid 2000s was when Charlie hit Punta Gorda, there was a mobile home park that was downtown on the water, a great little place to live. It had been there since probably the 40s. And, it was cheap living, cheap waterfront living, one of the cheapest waterfront living spaces in Florida. Charlie came through and ruined the mobile home park. And before the owner of the mobile home park or mobile home owners could replace their mobile homes, Charlotte County changed their zoning laws. Oh, you can no longer have mobile homes on the water. So it changed the whole dynamics of downtown Punta Gorda. And so, you and I were talking about before we even saw kind of the news story that, that this is going to give people, economic developers and government and everyone a chance to say, okay, if we're going to revamp what Southern California looks like, how people move and move around and regulate these things, what's the perfect way to do it? And so, I question whether or not California, and Gavin Newsom has said some things like, that they're going to review all things. And, they say, oh, they're going to have, they're going to move quickly and take bureaucracy out of the way so that people can rebuild. And so we'll see what changes come about. But I know that there's some question about, high-speed rail in California and where that was going to go and how that coordinates with the fire and a lot of those things. So,
yeah, you sent me the picture this morning, and we'll put it up on our website or attach it somehow to this episode. But it shows it is California wildfires line up exactly in the same path as the California high-speed rail. And when you look at these two images, I mean, it's just honestly scary. And so when you sent that to me, I started digging in a little bit deeper. And so and I just want to call out again that I was the first one ever to say that Elon is diabolical and his plan is to take over the world.
Yeah,
And
Steve Bannon joined the conservative Trump advisor, joined your chorus this week, saying, that Elon Musk is, quote, evil.
Yeah. So I just want to say, and you could go back and watch it on episode 5 of our podcast. It was titled Connections, Conspiracies, and Cucumbers, is where I brought out that I feel that Elon is the next Batman villain and going to take over the world. So, and let me tell you why. So I don't even know if you know this, but on November 6th, Elon held court that Wednesday before a packed crowd at Cal State. And he was talking about, he says, and this is quote, "It seems like when the people of California approved the high-speed rail, they were kind of sold one thing, and then it's like a bait and switch, deliver something else. I think people generally like high-speed rail, would be cool. It would be like, yeah, they have it like in Japan and China, and we should have it here." And I would agree with that. But the high-speed rail, that's a candle to the one that's in, but what did he say? But this one can't even hold a candle to the one that's in China. So it's not like cool. And he starts laughing. It's literally 40-year technology. And he says, "Hey, California, we should do something that's badass. This is embarrassing." So to be clear, I'm actually in favor of high-speed rail, even if it's done right and it doesn't have to be a hyperloop or anything. So Hyperloop, of course, go down that rabbit hole. And on Monday, August 12th, 2013, Elon unveiled a transportation concept that he could whisk passengers the nearly 400 miles between Los Angeles and San Francisco in 30 minutes. So half the time it takes in an airplane. And on a conference call that Monday, back in 2013, Musk said that if all goes right, it could take 7 to 10 years for the first passengers to make the journey between California's 2 biggest metro areas. And he put the price tag at about $6 million, which they are saying now would be about 1/10 the projected cost of the high-speed rail that California wants to build.
So 6 million or 6
billion.
Yeah, right.
6 billion.
So interesting.
Yeah. And doesn't Elon live in California?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have
I mean,
stuff out there. Yeah.
you cannot tell me that this guy is not behind everything. So then you have, I mean, and then, there's Newsom was out there having a conference just at the beginning of January about the high-speed rail thing. I mean, you just can't tell me that there is not someone out there who is doing this, because if you look at the path of these fires, it just makes no sense. It makes no sense on how everything in its way is not complete destruction. There's things here that have lasted. There's things here that have lasted. Even on Malibu, like there's one section of housing of the houses that are gone, but then there's this little section that's still standing. Like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
And it comes from so far up on the hills and comes all the way down, but misses a house or misses a whatever.
Well, James Woods even said on his Twitter, that it was a miracle that his house survived.
Yeah.
Right. Like somehow his house, survived. And while a lot of his neighbors' houses were completely destroyed.
And is that like, to me, immediately a red flag? Because I was watching TikTok and I saw this video of this man coming back to his neighborhood. And he's videoing the whole time. He's walking through his neighborhood and everything. And you couldn't see his house where his house was because it was behind shrubs, like roof high shrubs. And
the shrubs survived.
The shrubs survived. And when he got to like the houses beside him, in front of him were gone. His whole street, when you looked down his street, everything was gone. And when he got to his driveway, which was the opening where you could see into his house was still there. He was actually building a deck on the back of his house that was still framed. It wasn't even finished yet. It was still framed. He had lumber in his backyard. So on one side, there were maybe a few.
Now, how big a lot is this? Like, is it an acre or is it a third of an acre?
I would probably say it was about, let's say, a third of an acre.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more, because there was a detached garage that stayed, never touched. The house, the street behind him was completely gone. So my red flags immediately go up, because it's like,
So
okay,
is this Elon Musk's best friend?
not that, but do you have to have like a house here and there to be able to say, hey, why don't you let us buy this from you? Even though your house is still standing and you're the only one in this area, let us buy this house from you, because we're going to now be using this land. Like, does that help them save
So
face?
they don't have. So,
Well, you're not going
yes.
to leave one house.
Well, you're not going to leave
standing
one
in the
house, but
neighborhood.
you could, regardless, if all of it goes away, I mean, the government can take your home through eminent domain for, the interstate. That happens all the time,
Sure.
right? Like somebody holds out, it's like, sorry, we're going to build the interstate through this property. We can't, the interstate's not built, like big swaths of, right-hand turns and left-hand turns to get around, somebody's property. We build it through people's property.
Sure.
So the same thing would be true with high-speed rail. And so we would have, I see what you're saying from a public relations standpoint, but how do they choose one house? Now that could be as simple as the wind.
He was a nobody.
I
He
get
was
it, but it could be as simple as the wind changed direction at just the right time. It could be that, when they dropped water, that water hit his house and, as they're trying to put out flames. And so it saved his house, and it was just a helicopter going over, dropping water. And at the time it was at the edge of the fire. Like, you don't know. There are some explanations of why, you're not suggesting this person's part of the conspiracy.
No.
You're suggesting that the government is saying, oh, we're going to save some houses so that we have the ability to go in and have the PR of buying someone's house so we can build this high-speed rail.
Just something. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that these fires could just, I mean, does it just go out? Like, it's just
the first fire,
mind-boggling.
the conspiracy now from Californians are, include, that it took hours after the fire was reported for fire trucks to show up to try to even do anything with the fire. By that time, the winds had picked up and, Katie barred the door. Certainly there was a fire in Palisades on New Year's Day. It sounds like that they extinguished, supposedly. And yet that's the same area where the this fire started. So there's some question, and I believe that fire on New Year's Day was started by fireworks. And then they say, oh, it's because, they don't do things like when they have electric wires, like we have a large electric towers, not just poles, but a big transmission line that kind of goes through the side of our neighborhood. And once or twice a year, what do? They go and mow underneath it, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not because trucks go in there on a regular basis to do maintenance on those towers. They do it to keep the brush away. In California, they don't do that. And so they have all this brush underneath the towers. So if there ever is an arc or there is some sort of issue, then that stuff is easily flammable. And so that's what they suggested at the beginning of this fire, that it was likely an electric arc coming from faulty transmission equipment from the power company that started these fires. And then the second theory is that it's a rebirth of the January 1st fire that was supposedly extinguished.
I think all of this
and then
was
you look
done
at-
because Trump was completely against doing anything with the high speed and putting that kind of money into California. And I think it was purposely done prior to inauguration to keep him out of it.
So that's possible. The interesting part to me is, and I have not done this, I'm sure somebody will do a time lapse video of when these other, there were a total of 6 or 7 different fires that they contained. They contained some of the other smaller ones, 700, 900, 1,200 acres.
Well, you have to do something, right?
And so my question, to you, and I think maybe for another podcast, would be to look at, when did those fires start? And how did those fires, with the wind that was happening at the time, how did those fires then line up with what you're suggesting with the high-speed rail? Because, it's not just the Palisades fire. The high-speed rail is, 80 or 100 miles long.
Mm-hmm.
And so you ended up with these 5 fires, right? And, they just took out 700 acres here, 900 acres here. I think it could help prove your theory that it was, and it may not be the government. It could be, activists who want high-speed rail. It could be anything. Like if you're, I don't think they're not really talking about the origin of these other fires. I think most people are assuming they were set by people, copycats or whatever, as the winds picked up. And so, whether that was then planned by someone who is in support of high-speed rail to get the high-speed rail, to get houses out of the way easily, to then put high-speed rail in, is a whole, different level. But I think people will start looking at it in a much more granular way.
Well, I mean, we know that Newsom asked Trump to come and visit him.
Yeah.
After Trump after Trump already asked for his resignation. I mean, God, the whole thing just makes me so mad. And, just the way that, all of it's been led, and the things that have happened leading up to these fires with, the mayor, taking money away from the fire departments and the water and the insurance. And it's
well, and it's
disgusting.
The second thing where supposedly maintenance by government has caused a major problem. We had New Orleans, where maintenance of the bollards that are the barriers led to the New Orleans attack.
And the mayor said that she didn't know that.
The police chief.
Yeah.
Said, I didn't even know we had them. And, but they were under maintenance for the Super Bowl. Right. And so they had temporary barriers into Bourbon Street that the truck just drove around. And then now we have maintenance. And this wasn't even real maintenance. This was cosmetic maintenance. They were like painting. It was not something that needed to be done. And, for these things to work,
What things? What are you talking about?
The reservoirs that are dry, the man-made reservoirs that are dry. So, now they were dry for maintenance. And now why would you,
but that's not even true, because they said, because the one interview that I saw, when they said that it was under maintenance, someone who lives in the area said that's been dry for years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's just.
So I have one more news story. It's an international story.
Okay.
And I think this will be a short one, but but it's probably these people haven't heard of, and it could impact them directly in their wallets. And there's a oil spill over in Kerch Strait that connects the Sea of Azov with the Black Sea that has been a point of contention between Russia and Ukraine for a couple decades. And so a Russian tanker spilled oil, and they either think it hit another ship, or now they're saying that it was damaged in high seas and it leaked all this oil. Well, then Russia came out and said, no, that never happened. Then, of course, oil starts showing up on beaches like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And now they're trying to deal with the ecological disaster. Now, for people who are listening, this is an important strait because a lot of Russia's energy, oil, is shipped through that strait, but so is a lot of Ukraine's food. And so Ukraine provides a lot of grain for the rest of the world, not necessarily the United States, but those are both oil and food could increase in prices due to this oil spill. And, of course, Russia and Ukraine are at war with one another, but there's some level of truce when it comes to this strait and the shipping lanes. And so we'll see what comes of this, but this has been going on about a week.
A week.
Yeah. And so now, but it's still, quote, worsening as of today. So, but I really haven't heard it anywhere other than BBC and some international news that I read. And so I just thought I'd bring it up and let our listeners know that this is going on in the world.
Just to see how it plays out.
Just make sure that they're aware and that this is something that could very well impact both global oil and food prices.
Oh, great. Just something else we need. All right. So my stories for today. So there is a YouTuber. Her name is Zara Dar, who quit her PhD. She was going to school for her PhD for OnlyFans. She is now uploading lectures and she's also uploading lectures on Pornhub. So she grabbed headlines attention last month after she sensationally announced that she was halting her PhD pursuit and becoming an OnlyFans model. In the YouTube video titled PH Dropa to OnlyFans Model, she said that she quit her PhD program to join OnlyFans as an adult content creator, and she has revealed that she has been sharing her STEM videos, which I don't know if you know what STEM is, but it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. For those who don't know, he's laughing at me right now because,
And some people call it STEAM because they add art.
Okay. So she is sharing her videos on adult porn sites. So in a social media post, she said that she has been promoting her lectures on both YouTube and Pornhub, with the latter offering 3 times more revenue. So she said, people may not know this, but I publish the same STEM videos on both YouTube and Pornhub. While YouTube generally generates more views, the ad revenue per 1 million views on Pornhub is nearly 3 times higher. So she says that Pornhub was paying her $1,000 per million views, while YouTube was only offering $340. And she said in a separate post, she also complained that her post documenting the difference in payout led to her being banned from LinkedIn. So she said, I shared the same post on X and LinkedIn comparing the ad revenue I typically earn per view on YouTube versus Pornhub, where I upload my STEM videos. While the post went semi-viral on LinkedIn with many top voices reaching out to me, my account was unexpectedly blocked without prior notice. So she said she had envisioned a different life for herself, one unbounded by the expectations of academic institution or the constraints of corporate office.
So she's not producing pornography.
No.
She's teaching.
I don't know how she's doing it. I mean, maybe on Pornhub there's a new way of doing things that involves science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Who knows?
Yes. Well, in Florida now, we can't even go on Pornhub without getting your driver's license, without taking a picture of your driver's license. That is a new law that came in January 1st. And Pornhub.
Did you find that out by reading?
No. Yes. Yes, I did. But Pornhub, I think, is no longer offered in Florida because Pornhub has made a decision.
They don't want us to learn anything.
Their company, yeah. God forbid. And Pornhub as a company has said, "Oh, we're not gonna do age verification in that way." And so, if you're all porn companies, internet porn,
In what way?
you have to go through a third-party age verification, which requires you to upload your driver's license to view pornography in Florida now.
Do they do that for alcohol when you go into alcohol websites?
Probably.
I mean,
I don't think 13-year-olds aren't buying alcohol on.
no, but if you're
websites.
lying about your age, they're not having you upload it.
Yeah, I think they
A
have a
driver's
third. Like
license?
if you go to whatever, you have a third party. You have some level of a third party verification before you can buy alcohol and have it shipped to your house.
Okay. Who owns Pornhub?
I'm sure Elon Musk. I mean, look it up. I don't know who owns Pornhub. I haven't looked that up.
So,
But I do think it's pretty interesting that she supposedly is putting the exact same video on YouTube and on Pornhub, and she's getting more revenue from Pornhub. And I think it's interesting that if she is not teaching in a sexual matter, that
well, we don't know.
Why would somebody go to Pornhub to listen to a STEM speech? I
well,
don't know.
and now we can't even tell. So someone outside of Florida is going to have to go on Pornhub.
Maybe I'll do the research. I'll load my driver's license and do the research just for this
Oh,
podcast. Yeah.
you still can you still can see it in Florida as long as you upload your
Oh,
driver's
maybe not on
license.
Pornhub, because Pornhub, like on the other pornography sites, yes, because you can upload your driver's license. Pornhub, you can't even get to.
Okay. All right. So
I haven't tried.
to our listeners, can someone please, outside of Florida, can you please go onto Pornhub, which is a Canadian
Got a
owned,
great excuse now.
and look for Zara, Zaradar, and let us know what her videos are like, because I am truly intrigued. I want to see how educational they are. Right?
I'm going to go with no comment here.
Chicken. All right. My next story happens in Australia. So, an Australian wife has been having some thoughts that her husband is cheating. So, yeah, he's been making frequent trips to South Wales to visit his family, something he rarely did before. They live in Queensland. So when he started making these trips, he's saying this is where he's going. It led to the suspicion. And the wife checked their joint bank accounts and found transactions from the grocery store named Coles and a hardware store, Coles, Coles, and a hardware store named Burnings. And so she actually hired a private investigator. And because there were no specific locations on the transaction, so she couldn't narrow down where he was exactly going. So it was when the private investigator, whose name is Miss Cass, advised the wife to check to see if they had any joint rewards accounts. So such as Everyday Awards or Flybys. So the couple had an account on Flybys, which led the unraveling of the mystery. So the purchases were from Coles and Bunnings, were listed with the suburbs where each store located, and they turned out to be in a Queensland suburb where the husband's ex-girlfriend lived. So he has now been caught. And in another video, the PI wanted to share other ways to catch your cheating husband. And she's shared a tip is go into their phone and check their frequently used emojis. And if there is an eggplant emoji and it wasn't sent to you, then you may want to check some things out.
I didn't even know you could look at frequently used emojis. So
I can.
Yeah,
I can look at frequently used emojis.
Yeah, have a blast. You'll probably get the one that's LOL or 100%, because those are about the only emojis I use. So, or the happy birthday.
Yeah.
I send a lot of happy birthdays. So.
Yeah. Well, you jumped in there right away with what you use and what you don't. So
yeah. Well, go ahead and check it out, because you've got access to my phone, because we're recording the podcast here on my phone. So.
Yeah. So I just wonder.
Any secrets, babe.
I just wonder if this poor woman from Queensland, I wonder if they get a buy one get one divorce attorney special.
So it's that, but honestly, so he was buying, I guess, his girlfriend
probably stopping to get flowers or appetizers
and
or
he went ahead and
condoms
put it on the grocery stores.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like-
the cheap ass used the rewards card as he's out cheating, and that's what got him caught.
So he wasn't using money. He wasn't using his debit card.
Well, yeah, he was still using a debit card, but she couldn't narrow down
Oh,
at
where-
which stores. So the
Okay.
rewards card was the one that put it into a specific location.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So that ends our episode with the dumbass in Queensland, Australia. Watch how you use your rewards rewards cards, people,
Watch
because
those points, ladies.
Yeah.
Go in there and find your men's points and see what they're spending them on.
So be careful with your emojis too. I'll be checking Jamie's and letting you know on the next episode.
Have fun with that.
Bye.
This has been Reasonable Arguments News and Nonsense.
There is so much BS on the mainstream media news. But you knew that, and that's why you're here. We tackle everything with complete honesty, and we always end on a lighthearted note to leave you smiling. Why do it if it ain't fun? We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media. Find Jamie at Rep Jam and Jennifer at Jennifer_SRQ.
See you next time as husband and wife duo, Jamie and Jennifer, keep it real on Reasonable Arguments News and Nonsense.